Karen Whitmore stood in her perfectly manicured driveway at 6:47 am, wielding a measuring tape like a sword as she screamed at 3 uniformed soldiers. This vehicle is exactly 4.7 inches over the acceptable parking distance from the curb. I don't care if you're in the military. HOA rules are HOA rules. The lead soldier, Staff Sergeant Martinez, blinked slowly as Karen jabbed her manicured finger toward his government-issued Humvee. Behind him, 2 younger soldiers exchanged incredulous glances while Karen continued her tirade, her voice climbing octaves like a soprano hitting impossible notes. "Ma'am, we're conducting authorized training exercises in the area," Martinez said with the patience of a man who'd negotiated ceasefires. "We'll be gone by AUTHORIZED. Karen's voice cracked like a whip. She marched closer, her pink jogging suit a stark contrast to their desert camouflage. The Willowbrook Estates Homeowners Association didn't approve any military maneuvers. Section 12B clearly states that all vehicular activities must be pre-approved by the Architectural Review Committee. Staff Sergeant Martinez rugged his temples. In 12 years of service, including 2 deployments, he'd never encountered anything quite like this. "Ma'am, this is a federal exercise. We don't need HOA permission." Karen's eyes narrowed to laser-sharp slits. "Federal? Federal?" She whipped out her phone faster than a gunslinger. "We'll see about that. I'm calling my lawyer, the county commissioner, ND Channel 7 News. You boys are about to learn that some battles can't be won with camouflage and muscles." The tension stretched like a rubber band ready to snap. Martinez's jaw tightened as Karen continued photographing everything: their faces, license plates, equipment serial numbers. She moved with the methodical precision of someone who turned righteous indignation into an art form. "Listen, lady," Private Johnson muttered, earning a sharp look from his sergeant. Karen pivoted toward the young soldier like a heat-seeking missile. "Lady? Did you just call me lady? I am Mrs. Whitmore, elected HOA president for 3 consecutive terms, and I have successfully handled noise complaints, fence disputes, and 17 separate mailbox violations. Your little war games don't scare me." What Karen didn't know was that Staff Sergeant Martinez had spent the last 6 months dealing with increasingly aggressive HOA complaints about their training route. What she also didn't know was that yesterday's equipment malfunction that left muddy tire tracks across her neighbor's pristine lawn wasn't an accident. It was Martinez's way of sending a message. The standoff intensified as more neighbors emerged from their houses, smartphones recording. Karen felt the familiar rush of being right, of standing up to authority. She built her reputation on these moments, on being the woman who wouldn't back down. But as Martinez stepped closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper, Karen caught something in his eyes that made her stomach flutter with an unfamiliar sensation: uncertainty. "Mrs. Whitmore," he said quietly, "you might want to reconsider your approach." Karen's grip tightened on her phone, but for the first time in years, she wondered if she'd finally met her match. Karen's hands trembled, not from fear, she told herself, but from pure, crystallized fury. She'd spent the last hour on the phone with every authority figure she could think of, and the responses had been maddeningly similar. "Ma'am, we can't interfere with authorized military training." "OUTHORIZED." She'd shrieked into the phone for the 7th time, but the county clerk had already hung up. Now, standing in her kitchen window, she watched the soldiers methodically setting up what appeared to be surveillance equipment in the cul-de-sac. Her neighbors, weak, spineless people who'd never understood the importance of maintaining standards, were actually bringing them coffee and donuts. "Traitors," she muttered, then grabbed her emergency HOA violation notice pad. 20 minutes later, Karen emerged from her house armed with a clipboard, a bullhorn she'd bought for pool parties, and the kind of determination that had once made her high school debate team legendary. She changed into her most professional outfit, a navy blazer with gold buttons that screamed, "I speak to managers for a living." Attention UNLLOCCUP of VILLOUBROKE states. Her voice boomed through the bullhorn, causing several soldiers to look up from their equipment. You are in dire violation of sections 3A, 7C, and 12B of our community covenant. Staff Sergeant Martinez approached slowly, his expression unreadable. Mrs. Whitmore, we need to talk. Oh, now you want to talk? Karen lowered the bullhorn just enough to speak directly. After your little intimidation tactics this morning? I've been busy, Sergeant. I've contacted my attorney, filed complaints with the city council, and your attorney dropped you as a client 2 hours ago. Martinez interrupted quietly. Something about irreconcilable differences regarding reasonable expectations. Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. That's impossible. Gerald has been my lawyer for 8 years. Gerald also happens to be a Marine reservist, Martinez continued, his voice carrying just loud enough for the gathering neighbors to hear. He called me personally to apologize for what he termed your completely unhinged behavior regarding legitimate military operations. The words hit Karen like physical blows. She looked around at her neighbors, searching for support, but found only uncomfortable expressions and averted eyes. Mrs. Chen, who'd always backed her up during mailbox color disputes, actually stepped behind her husband. This is a conspiracy, Karen whispered, then raised her voice to a shout. This is a conspiracy. But even as she said it, something cold settled in her stomach. For the first time since becoming HOA president, Karen Whitmore felt truly alone. The rules that had always protected her, the authority she built her identity around, seemed suddenly fragile. Martinez stepped closer, his voice dropping to where only she could hear. Mrs. Whitmore, I'm going to give you one chance to walk away from this with your dignity intact. What we're doing here, let's just say it's bigger than HOA violations. Karen stared at him, her mind racing. There was something in his tone, something that suggested layers she hadn't considered. The equipment they were setting up wasn't standard training gear. She'd seen enough military movies to know that. What aren't you telling me? She asked quietly, her professional mask slipping for just a moment. Martinez's expression softened almost imperceptibly. Some battles aren't about being right, ma'am. Sometimes they're about knowing when to step back and let the professionals handle things. But Karen Whitmore had never stepped back from anything in her life. And as she gripped her clipboard tighter, she realized this war was just beginning, even if she no longer understood exactly who she was fighting.